I'm in absolute angst. That's the only way I know how to describe the cold, heavy weight sitting on my chest right now. Everything feels surreal, like I am living inside someone else's nightmare. My wife of 35 years passed away just a few days ago. Under normal circumstances, a husband should be drowning in tears, paralyzed by grief. But honestly, I'm glad she died. Before you judge me, before you call me a monster, you need to understand the terrifying web of lies I was trapped in for nearly 3 decades. Sarah and I married young. We were high school sweethearts, full of dreams, building a life from nothing. But our house had one echoing, painful silence. We couldn't have children. For 10 long years, our lives revolved around negative pregnancy tests, expensive fertility clinics, and quiet, heartbreaking tears in the middle of the night. Every month that passed without a child tore a little piece of Sarah's soul away. I watched her look at empty strollers in the park with a hunger that scared me. She desperately wanted to be a mother. So when the doctor finally looked at us 10 years later and said the words, "You are pregnant," we wept in each other's arms. It felt like a miracle. It felt like our suffering was finally over. During the entire 9 months of her pregnancy, every single ultrasound, every doctor's appointment pointed to one thing. We were having a boy. Sarah was ecstatic. We spent hundreds, thousands of dollars preparing for him. I spent 3 weekends painting the nursery a beautiful pastel blue. We bought a wooden crib, stuffed animals, and dozens of tiny clothes with little blue cars on them. We even picked our name. We were going to name him Ethan. Then came the day that shifted the axis of my universe. I was at work, managing the chaotic inventory at the regional warehouse, when my phone rang. It was Sarah. Her water had broken, but her voice didn't sound panicked. It sounded cold, calculated, and distant. Instead of demanding I rush home, she screamed at me to stay at work. She told me she was fine, that her mother was taking her, and that I would only get in the way. I was confused, even hurt, but I chalked it up to birth hormones. I finished my shift, my hands shaking with anticipation, and the moment I clocked out, I flew to the hospital, breaking every speed limit in the city. When I arrived at the city hospital, it was absolute chaos. There had been a massive multi-car accident nearby, and the emergency room was overflowing with paramedics, screaming patients, and overwhelmed nurses. I ran to the reception desk, my heart hammering against my ribs, asking for Sarah. The receptionist frantically flipped through papers, but couldn't find her name. I searched the maternity ward, looking through every glass window, my panic morphing into terror. Where was my wife? Where was my son? Suddenly, the heavy pager on my belt started beeping. I rushed to a payphone and dialed a number. It was Sarah. She was speaking in a quiet, exhausted whisper. But she wasn't at the hospital. She was already home. When I drove back and walked through our front door, the blue nursery was empty. Sarah was curled up in her favorite armchair in the living room. The lights were dimmed. In her arms, she was cradling a baby. I rushed to her, expecting to see Ethan. But as I pulled back the pink blanket, I froze. It was a girl. Sarah looked up at me with pale, hollow eyes and said there had been a massive paperwork mistake at the clinic. She said the doctors had been wrong all along. Her mother stood in the corner of the room, looking intensely nervous, refusing to meet my eyes before abruptly leaving. I wanted to ask questions, I wanted to know how a doctor mistakes a girl for a boy for 9 months. But looking at Sarah's exhausted face and holding that beautiful, innocent little girl in my arms, I let it go. I chose peace over suspicion. We named her Lily. Watching her grow up was the greatest joy of my life. I worked 80 hours a week at the warehouse to make sure she had everything. I saved up for her school dresses, her birthdays, and eventually her university tuition. But as the years rolled on, the whispers started. Neighbors would look at us at block parties and comment on how Lily looked nothing like me and absolutely nothing like Sarah. Lily had striking green eyes and dark, curly hair. Sarah and I were both brown-eyed and straight-haired. The biggest red flag happened when Lily was 16. She came home from her high school biology class with a blood typing assignment. She was confused because her results showed she was O negative. Sarah was AB positive and I was A positive. Genetically, it was an absolute impossibility for Lily to be our biological child. When I brought the paper to Sarah that night, she went completely pale, grabbed the assignment, threw it in the fireplace, and screamed at me for questioning her loyalty. She accused me of implying she had an affair. I felt so guilty for hurting her that I buried the truth deep inside my mind. I convinced myself the high school science kit was just faulty. 3 years ago, Sarah was diagnosed with terminal cancer. I watched the woman I love slowly wither away. As the tumor stole her strength, a strange darkness took over her mind. In her final months, heavily medicated on morphine, she started having horrific night terrors. She would wake up dripping in sweat, crying out. I had to do it. She was crying in the nursery. Or, they won't find her, I hid the clothes. I thought it was just ICU psychosis. I thought the drugs were playing tricks on her mind. Until her final hour. Lily was away at college, 100 miles away, and I was sitting alone by Sarah's hospital bed, holding her cold, fragile hand. She looked at me, her breathing shallow, her eyes suddenly clearing up from the fog of medication. She gripped my hand with a terrifying strength. Tears streamed down her hollow cheeks. She looked at me and whispered, Our Ethan, our boy died during the birth. There were complications. The cord was wrapped around his neck. When they told me he didn't make it, something brewed inside my brain. I couldn't go back to that blue room empty-handed. Couldn't let you see me fail. My blood ran cold. Sarah, what are you saying? I whispered. She choked on her own breath, her eyes wide with 30 years of buried guilt. The hospital was in total chaos that day because of the accident. There was a young mother in the bed next to me. She was asleep. Her baby girl was in the bassinet. I took her. I walked out of the hospital through the fire exit while everyone was distracted. My mother helped me hide her. Lily isn't ours. I stole her. Right after those words left her lips, the heart monitor let out a long, flatline beep. The nurses rushed in, but I couldn't move. I stood there, paralyzed. Now Sarah is gone, and I am left in this quiet, empty house with the truth that is tearing my brain apart. I looked through Sarah's old locked jewelry box yesterday. At the very bottom, hidden beneath the velvet, I found a faded hospital ankle band from 25 years ago. It had a different family's last name on it. Lily is coming home from university tomorrow for the funeral. She is going to hug me, cry on my shoulder, and look at me with those beautiful green eyes calling me Dad. God help me, I still haven't found the heart to tell her that her entire life is a lie, and that the woman she is mourning was actually her kidnapper. It has been a week since Sarah's funeral, a week of looking at Lily, watching her eyes fill with tears as she grieves for the woman she thought was her mother, while my own chest feels like it's burning with fire. I couldn't keep living in that silent torture. 2 days ago, I made a decision that will alter the rest of our lives. I took that faded hospital ankle band and drove down to the central police station. I sat in a cold, fluorescent lit room and told the detective everything. I expected them to handcuff me, to treat me like an accomplice. Instead, the detective looked at me with profound pity. He ran the name from the ankle band through the cold case database. It turned out, 25 years ago, a massive police hunt had taken place in the hospital. A young couple, Arthur and Eleanor, had gone home with empty arms, their lives completely shattered by the sudden disappearance of their newborn daughter. They never stopped looking. They posted flyers for a decade before moving away to a quiet town 3 states over. Both of them are still alive. The police told me they have to investigate, but because Sarah is dead, there is no one left to prosecute. But a real trial is happening in my living room. Tonight, Lily is coming back from her friend's house. The police have already contacted the biological parents. A DNA test is scheduled for tomorrow morning. I'm sitting on the couch right now, staring at the front door, waiting for the sound of her keys. I'm about to break the heart of the only person I love in this world. I'm about to tell my daughter that everything she knows is a lie.